I've always believed that love, when it's true, changes the way you see the world. It softens you. It teaches you patience. It gives you hope where there used to be none. For me, that love had a name, Elena. The first time I met her, I wasn't even looking for anything serious. I had just started a new job, moved into a new apartment, and was trying to rebuild myself after a rough breakup. Life felt like it was giving me a second chance, but my heart wasn't ready to take it. Then she came along, simple, quiet, and warm. There was something about her that felt safe. She didn't talk too much, but when she did, her words carried weight. She had this calm energy, the kind that makes you want to sit beside her without saying a word. We met through a mutual friend at a small birthday gathering. I remember standing near the balcony, away from the noise, when she came to join me. She smiled, and for a moment, the room didn't matter. "Do you always hide from people like this?" she asked with a teasing grin. "Only when the people are too loud," I replied. She laughed softly, and just like that, the ice between us melted. That night we talked for hours about books, family, life, and the kind of silence we both liked. I didn't realize it then, but that was the beginning of something that would change my life completely. Over the next few months we became inseparable. She would come over after work, we'd cook together, laugh, and talk about everything and nothing. She wasn't dramatic. She didn't need expensive things. All she ever wanted, she said, was peace, and I believed her. Sometimes, late at night, I would watch her fall asleep beside me. There was something peaceful in the way she breathed, something honest. It made me want to protect her, to never let the world hurt her. My friends would joke that I was falling too fast. Maybe I was. But when you've spent years searching for something real, and you finally find someone who makes you feel seen, you hold on. I thought I knew her. Her favorite songs, her fears, the way she bit her lip when she was thinking. I thought that meant I understood her heart. But I was wrong. Looking back now, there were small signs, tiny cracks that I ignored. A sudden change in her tone when she spoke on the phone, messages she'd delete quickly, the way she'd sometimes seem distant, like her body was there, but her mind was somewhere else. I told myself it was just stress. She'd started a new position at work. It made sense that she'd be tired. I trusted her completely, maybe too much. One evening, I called her after work. Usually she'd answer on the first ring. That day, it went straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same thing. Hours passed, and my chest started to tighten. It wasn't jealousy. It was fear. That kind of quiet fear that tells you something's wrong, but you can't name it. When she finally called back, she sounded distracted. "Hey, sorry, my phone died." Her voice was calm, almost too calm. I laughed it off, pretending I didn't notice. But that night, when she said she was too tired to come over, something inside me whispered, "She's lying." I didn't want to believe it. Not her. Not Elena. Weeks passed, and the distance grew. Our messages became shorter, our calls less frequent. She said she needed space. I tried to give it to her, thinking that's what love does, it respects boundaries. But the truth was, I was slowly losing her, and I didn't know why. One Saturday morning, I decided to surprise her. She'd mentioned she wasn't feeling well, so I picked up soup from her favorite place and went to her apartment. I didn't call first. I wanted to see the smile she always gave me when she saw me at the door. Except this time, when the door opened, the smile never came. She stood there, frozen, her face pale, her eyes wide. Behind her, I heard movement, a voice, a man's voice, asking, "Who is it?" That moment, my world fell silent. The soup slipped from my hand and hit the floor. "Elena? Who's that?" I asked. She didn't answer. She just looked at me, like she wished I hadn't come. That's when I knew. I didn't need explanations or apologies. The truth was right there in her silence. I remember standing at her door, unable to move. My chest felt heavy, but my eyes stayed dry. It wasn't anger I felt. It was disbelief, the kind that makes you question your own memories. All those nights we'd spent together. All the times she said, "I love you." Were they all lies? She finally whispered, "I'm sorry." Those 2 words, they broke me. But I didn't shout. I didn't ask why. I just said, quietly, "Take care of yourself." And then I turned around and walked away. And that was the moment I realized the woman I loved wasn't the woman I thought she was. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, staring at the ceiling. I didn't cry. I just sat there, trying to understand where everything had gone wrong. Was it me? Did I not give enough? Or had I loved someone who was never really mine to begin with? Her scent still lingered in my room, her toothbrush still by the sink. Everything around me was a reminder of the life I thought we were building. And yet, somehow, I knew that chapter had ended.
The morning after I saw her, I woke up feeling empty. You know that strange silence after a storm, when the world looks calm but everything inside you is broken? That's what it felt like. My phone was full of unread messages from her. "Please let me explain. It's not what you think. I made a mistake." But I couldn't bring myself to open them. Because deep down, I already knew what she would say, and nothing could change the truth I'd seen with my own eyes. I went to work like nothing had happened, smiled at people, answered emails, laughed when someone told a joke. But inside, it felt like I was watching my own life from a distance, like I wasn't really there anymore. That evening, I came home, sat on my bed, and finally read her messages. She said the man I saw was just a friend. Then she said it was complicated. Then she admitted she got too close but didn't mean to hurt me. Every word felt like another small cut. For days, I replayed everything in my head, every conversation, every memory. I tried to find clues I had missed, signs I had ignored. And they were all there, scattered like pieces of a puzzle I never wanted to solve. The nights were the hardest. I would lie awake staring at the empty side of the bed where she used to sleep. I could still hear her laughter in the silence. People say time heals all wounds, but when you're in it, time feels cruel. Every minute stretches endlessly, and every thought drags you deeper into the past you can't change. One evening, a week later, she came to see me. I almost didn't open the door, but something in me needed closure. She stood there, eyes swollen, holding a small box of things she had taken from my place, my hoodie, a book we read together, a photo of us. She handed it to me, trembling. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Her voice cracked, and I could tell she had been crying for days. I looked at her, the woman I once thought I'd marry, But now she felt like a stranger standing in my doorway. "Why?" I asked softly. "Why did you do it?" She wiped her tears. "I don't know. I was scared. You were so good to me. I didn't think I deserved it." That hurt more than anything, because I realized sometimes people don't cheat because they stop loving you. They cheat because they don't love themselves enough to believe they deserve the kind of love you give. I wanted to hate her. I really did. But as she stood there crying, I couldn't. I just felt tired. Tired of the pain, the confusion, the emptiness. I said, "You don't need to explain anymore. I understand." She looked up, surprised. "You do?" "I understand that sometimes people break good things because they don't know how to keep them." For a moment, she just stood there in silence. Then she nodded slowly, as if she finally understood too. We didn't hug. We didn't promise to stay friends. She just said goodbye, and I closed the door gently behind her. The weeks that followed were quiet. Too quiet. I learned how to cook for one again. I deleted our photos, or tried to. I avoided the places we used to go, but no matter what I did, I couldn't delete her from my heart. Because love doesn't vanish the moment trust breaks. It fades slowly, painfully, stubbornly, until one day it just becomes a memory. Sometimes I would catch myself smiling at old thoughts of her, before the hurt, and then I'd feel guilty for it, as if remembering the good parts meant betraying my own pain. But I realized something. It's okay to remember someone kindly even if they hurt you. It doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're human. Months passed. People around me thought I was doing fine. I laughed again. I worked harder. But deep inside, a quiet ache remained. Then one evening, while scrolling through my phone, I saw her name again. A message. It said, "I hope you're okay. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want to say thank you for everything you were to me." I stared at that message for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Another part wanted to reply. I finally wrote back, "I'm okay. I hope you find peace too." And for the first time in months, I felt a small sense of calm. Not because I wanted her back, but because I no longer hated her. That night, I went for a walk. The city lights shimmered on wet pavement, and I realized something I hadn't before. Forgiveness isn't about saying what you did is okay. It's about saying, I won't let what you did define me anymore. I had spent months trapped in the shadow of her mistake, replaying it like a film that never ends. But now, as the cool wind touched my face, I felt something different. Release. I whispered to myself, "It's time to let go." And I meant it. The days that followed were lighter. I started doing things I had forgotten I loved, painting, morning walks, calling my family more often. It was strange how healing sneaks up on you quietly, like sunlight through an open window. One morning, while making coffee, I found her old mug, the one with the chipped handle. For a moment I held it, remembering her laughter, her warmth. Then I set it down gently and smiled. Not out of sadness, but gratitude. Because even though she broke my heart, she also taught me how to rebuild it.
The months after Elena left were quiet in ways I had never experienced. For the first time in years, My phone didn't ring with her name on the screen. There were no good morning messages, no pictures of her lunch, no little notes saying, "I miss you." At first, that silence felt unbearable. I would wake up each morning expecting to hear her voice, and when I didn't, the day felt incomplete. But slowly, that silence began to feel like something else. Peace. I started noticing things I had ignored while I was with her. The way the sunlight touched my curtains in the morning, the smell of coffee filling the room, the gentle sound of the street below, alive but distant. Little by little, I began to exist again, not as someone's boyfriend, but as me. My friends helped more than they knew. They didn't ask too many questions. They just showed up, with food, with laughter, with distractions that reminded me life was still moving forward. One evening, my friend Daniel said, "You know, you stopped looking over your shoulder when we were out. That's good." I smiled. Maybe I finally stopped waiting for a ghost. He nodded quietly, understanding. It was strange how healing doesn't announce itself. There's no big moment where you suddenly feel better. It's just small changes. You laugh without forcing it. You sleep through the night. You see her photo and don't feel like breaking. I started writing again. Not letters to her, just thoughts. Little reflections about love, trust, and the strange ways people drift apart. Writing became therapy. Every word I put on paper took a bit of the pain out of me. I didn't write to forget her. I wrote to remember myself. Then one day, about 6 months later, I saw her again. It was at a cafe near the park. I was sitting by the window working on my laptop when she walked in. She didn't see me at first. She looked the same gentle posture, same calm presence. But there was something different in her eyes, a kind of quiet sadness I hadn't seen before. She ordered her coffee, turned around, and froze when she saw me. Our eyes met, and for a second, the world felt like it had paused. She walked over slowly. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi," I replied. We stood there for a moment, unsure of what to say next. Finally, she smiled faintly. We talked for a while. Not about the past, not about what went wrong, just life. Her new job, my work, the weather, the cafe's music. It was calm. No tension, no anger, just two people who once loved each other, now learning to exist peacefully apart. At one point, she looked at me and said, "You still think about that day, about how I hurt you?" I stayed silent for a moment, then said, "I know." She nodded. "You didn't deserve it." I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized that she meant it. "I've forgiven you," I said quietly. Tears filled her eyes. "Really?" "Yes. Forgiveness doesn't mean it didn't hurt. It just means I've chosen not to live there anymore." She smiled through her tears. "You were always the better one." I shook my head. "No, I just learned that carrying pain doesn't make it go away." After she left that cafe, I sat there for a long time, staring at my coffee. Something inside me felt lighter, like a door that had been locked for months had finally opened. Forgiving her didn't erase what she did, but it gave me back my peace. In the following weeks, I started seeing life differently. I realized that every person who comes into our lives leaves something behind. Lessons, scars, memories. And sometimes those lessons are the most valuable things we carry forward. I learned to set boundaries, to listen to my instincts, to love without losing myself in someone else. For the first time in a long while, I felt ready to live again, not waiting for closure, not searching for answers, just living. One Sunday afternoon, I visited my parents. My mother had always known when something was wrong, even when I didn't say a word. She handed me a cup of tea and said, "You look calmer these days." I smiled. Maybe because I finally stopped trying to fix what was never mine to fix. She nodded slowly. That's when you start healing, when you stop fighting the truth. Her words stayed with me. Healing wasn't about forgetting or pretending it didn't hurt. It was about accepting that some people are chapters, not the whole story. That night, I took a long walk by the river. The sky was clear and the air smelled like rain from the day before. I stood there, watching the reflection of city lights dance on the water, and I whispered, "Thank you, Elena." Not because of what she did, but because her leaving forced me to meet myself again. I realized that sometimes the person who breaks you is also the person who pushes you to grow. Pain, as cruel as it feels, can be the beginning of transformation. Life didn't become perfect after that. I still had lonely days. There were mornings when I woke up missing the comfort of her presence. But the difference was, the pain no longer controlled me. I could feel it without drowning in it. And that, I learned, is what healing truly is.
After forgiving her, something inside me shifted. It wasn't sudden, but it was real. The heaviness I'd carried for months started to lift, like clouds moving slowly across a gray sky. I began to notice small joys again, things I hadn't allowed myself to feel while wrapped up in hurt. The smell of fresh bread in the morning, the warmth of sunlight through my apartment window, the quiet rhythm of my own heartbeat, steady and undemanding. It felt strange, almost unfamiliar, to wake up without that ache in my chest, but it was welcome. I started reaching out to people I had ignored, old friends, cousins, neighbors, people who reminded me that life wasn't only about heartbreak. I found laughter in their company again. Small, simple laughter that didn't try to fill a void, but celebrated the present moment. Work became a refuge too. I immersed myself in projects I loved. And while I still thought of her sometimes, it was no longer with longing or bitterness. It was with calm understanding. One evening, I went to the park near my apartment. The air was crisp, and the sky was a deep indigo, streaked with fading sunlight. I sat on a bench and watched children play, couples walk hand in hand, and elderly men feed the birds. I thought about love and how fragile it could be. And I realized that love didn't always have to hurt to be meaningful. Some love teaches you, some leaves you, and some, like mine with Elena, leaves lessons in its wake. A few months later, I started meeting new people casually, not to replace her, but to remind myself that the world was still full of possibilities. One day, I met a woman named Sophie. She was gentle, thoughtful, and kind in ways that felt familiar yet new. I didn't rush anything. I didn't compare her to Elena. I simply allowed myself to enjoy her company, to laugh, to talk, and to exist fully in the present moment. Healing, I realized, wasn't a destination. It was a process. Slow, uneven, sometimes painful, sometimes quiet and subtle. There were days when memories of Elena would resurface, unenlightened. I would remember her smile, her laughter, the way she used to hold my hand. And instead of sinking into despair, I would simply acknowledge it. "Thank you for what you were," I would whisper. "Now it's time for something new."
Looking back now, I realize something important. Life is full of people who enter and leave, sometimes leaving us whole, sometimes leaving us broken. But the way we respond, the way we carry the lessons, the way we forgive, that shapes who we become. I forgave Elena, not because what she did was okay, not because I wanted her back. I forgave her because holding on to that hurt would have kept me trapped in a shadow I no longer needed to live in. Forgiveness gave me freedom. It allowed me to breathe, to smile, to feel sunlight on my face without a cloud of bitterness overhead. Love, I learned, isn't always about being with someone forever. Sometimes love is about learning, growing, and realizing your own strength. Sometimes love is about letting go, quietly, gently, with grace. I think about Elena from time to time. I wonder if she's found her own peace. I hope she has. And I know that I have found mine. Now, when I wake up in the morning, I feel gratitude for the lessons, for the heartbreak, for the moments of beauty that follow pain, for the people who stayed, for the friends who helped, for the love that continues in new forms. I've learned to trust myself again, to value my own heart, to give love fully, knowing that even if it doesn't last forever, it still matters. And so I live quietly, fully, and with hope. I live knowing that life is too short to carry resentment. I live knowing that forgiveness doesn't weaken you, it strengthens you. And I live knowing that even when someone isn't who you thought they were, you can still find peace. If there's one thing I hope anyone listening to this story remembers, it's this. Life will hurt you sometimes. People will disappoint you. But you have the power to choose how you respond. Choose forgiveness. Choose growth. Choose your own peace. Because in the end, that is the greatest love you can ever give yourself.